Have you ever noticed how sometimes you don't live the day lives you? You wake up with the intention to be calmer, more centered, more steady, and yet, when the first trigger shows up, your reaction comes out before you. A sharp message, a comment, a look, a demand, a delay, a small frustration, and suddenly something inside you grabs the steering wheel. You say what you didn't want to say. You decide, on impulse you should think. You snap. You over-explain. You ruminate. And then you spend the rest of the day with a bitter taste in your mouth, like you lost something precious, but you can't name what it was. Most of the time, what you lost was control over your own center. You lost the right to choose who you would be in that moment. Because reacting on autopilot isn't just getting nervous. Reacting on autopilot is handing your life over to the oldest, most primitive, most exhausting mode of the mind, defense mode. And living in defense mode all the time becomes a silent prison. Maybe you recognize this feeling. You're trying to become a better person, but an older you keeps showing up without permission. A you that protects itself by attacking, a you that protects itself by shutting down, a you that protects itself by controlling, a you that protects itself by rushing. And the saddest part is that this autopilot often feels necessary because it gives you the illusion of power. It feels like you're defending yourself, asserting yourself, securing yourself. But then the costs arrives. Guilt, regret, exhaustion, wounded relationships, sleepless nights, and that painful sense that you're always chasing yourself like your awareness is always one step behind your reactions. Today, I want to guide you through 7 Stoic meditations to break this cycle. And when I say meditations, I'm not talking about something pretty and distant, like a Zen ritual for people with too much free time. I'm talking about simple, deep inner exercises you can do in seconds in the middle of chaos, in the middle of work, in the middle of family, in the middle of an argument, in the middle of pain. Meditations that don't pull you away from reality, but return you to the right reality, the reality of what depends on you. Because Stoicism is not an escape, it's a return to command, a return to character, a return to the place inside you that the world should not be able to invade so easily. And right at the start, I'm going to invite you into something that isn't random promotion, it's part of the training itself. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment below which trigger pulls you into autopilot. Most often criticism, injustice, difficult people, family, money, anxiety, feeling disrespected, fear of the future, and share this with someone you love who keeps reacting, regretting, wearing down, as if they're trapped inside a constant internal alarm. Because sometimes a person doesn't need more strength, they need more choice. And choice is freedom. Before we enter the 7 meditations, I want to give you a key that changes everything. Autopilot is not a lack of character. Autopilot is a lack of space. A lack of space between what happens and what you do with what happens. When your life is too full, when your nervous system is overloaded, when your heart is too tired, that space shrinks. And when space shrinks, you become reflex. You become conditioned response. You'll become habit. Then you start watching yourself doing things that don't match your best self. Stoicism is the art of reclaiming that space. And that space, no matter how small, is where your dignity breathes again. It's where you stop being a puppet. It's where you become human in the highest sense. Someone capable of choosing. The first Stoic meditation, the simplest and most powerful, is the meditation of the conscious pause. It looks small because they're new spectacle, but it's the beginning of everything. Autopilot reaction is action without pause. It's like the stimulus goes in and the response shoots out like a bare wire. The pause is insulation. The pause is where you don't burn yourself, and it doesn't have to be long. It can be the length of a single breath that is slightly slower than usual. The secret isn't perfect breathing. The secret is using the breath as an inner signal. I am here, because autopilot is absent. Autopilot is leaving yourself. And when you return to the breath, you return to the body. When you return to the body, you return to the present. And when you return to the present, you regain the only power that exists, the power to choose the next action. If you want to feel this concretely, imagine the next time someone provokes you. The words land, blood rises, the chest tightens. And before you answer, you do something almost invisible. You exhale slowly. And while you exhale, you say inwardly, I will not react right now. That tiny gesture changes the chemistry of your day. It pulls you out of attack mode. It pulls you out of flight mode. It returns you to human mode. And then you realize something. Your automatic reaction wasn't inevitable. It was only fast. When you slow down just a little, you begin to see options. And options are freedom. A Stoic isn't someone who doesn't feel impact. They're someone who doesn't allow impact to become command. They feel, but they don't obey. The pause is the first training in that kind of strength. Quiet strength, mature strength, strength that doesn't need to prove anything, because proving many times, is just ego reacting, and ego reactions are expensive. The second meditation is the most classic Stoic practice and one of the most practical ways to break autopilot, the dichotomy of control. In other words, does this depend on me or does it not? It sounds too simple to be a meditation, but its simplicity is exactly what makes it powerful in the middle of chaos. Autopilot grows when you try to control what you cannot control. You get irritated because you want the person to be different. You panic because you want the past to change. You get anxious because you want guarantees about the future. You react because you want to force control where control doesn't exist. And in doing that, you lose control in the only place where it ever existed, yourself. When you ask, does this depend on me? You cut autopilot at the root. If it doesn't, you'll stop wasting energy fighting reality. If it does, you act, and acting here is not reacting. Acting is responding with intention. Acting is choosing what is right. Acting is taking the next dignified step. Notice how that changes your posture. Autopilot wants to dump emotion. Conscious response wants to build a path. You receive criticism. Does it depend on you what the other person thinks? No. Does it depend on you to learn something useful? Yes. Does it depend on you to keep dignity? Yes. Does it depend on you to respond firmly without poison? Yes. You face a delay. Does it depend on you whether traffic moves? No. Does it depend on you to use that time with serenity? Yes. Does it depend on you not to become aggressive? Yes. You meet someone rude. Does their character depend on you? No. Does your character depend on you? Yes. Practiced daily. This meditation does something almost miraculous. It returns you to the real place of power. It pulls you out of the fantasy of controlling the world and places you in the reality of governing yourself. And self-government is the only government that matters. The world changes, payoffly change, circumstances swing, but your choice strained over time becomes ground. A person with ground doesn't react as if they may wobble, but they don't lose themselves completely. That is taking back control. The third meditation is one many people don't expect, but it is deeply stoic and extremely effective against autopilot. The meditation of ascent. Epictetus spoke about this with sharp precision. Your mind receives impressions all day. Long images, ideas, interpretations. Autopilot's mistake is treating these impressions as instant truth. He disrespected me. She's attacking me. This will go wrong. I won't handle it. I must react. The Stoic trains a rare skill. They do not give immediate assent. They examine, they ask, is this fact or assumption? Is this reality or fear? Is this what happened or what I'm telling myself about what happened? That examination happens in seconds, silently, but it changes everything because autopilot cannot survive lucidity. This meditation is a reminder that your mind is not an infallible court. It's a survival machine that loves to exaggerate in order to protect you. It sees danger where there is none, attack where there is distraction, rejection where there is fatigue, catastrophe where there is a solvable problem. When you assent without examining, you become a slave to exaggeration. You live as if you're always under a threat, and then everything bothers you, everything shakes you, everything becomes too much. So the Stoic trains a simple inner gesture. Wait, let's see. They don't surrender to the first thought. They don't identify instantly with the first emotion. They become the observer. And being an observer isn't being cold, it's being free. Because the one who observes can choose. The one who doesn't observe reacts. You can practice this with a simple inner sentence. You repeat when you feel the impulse rising, this is an impression, not a fact. That sentence creates distance, and distance creates choice. Autopilot is closeness being glued to the thought, glued to the emotion, glued to pride, glued to fear. Distance is where character lives. The fourth meditation is the view from above. This is one of Stoicism's most beautiful meditations because it changes your scale. Much of autopilot is a scale problem. A small thing becomes huge because your mind is too glued to the detail. The view from above is a mental step back, seeing the bigger frame not to invalidate your pain, but to put it in its rightful place. It's remembering that life is larger than that message, that critique, that delay, that comment, that look. It's remembering you've survived harder things. It's remembering time moves, waves change, and this moment is not a life sentence. You can do the view from above in seconds. You're about to react, and inwardly you ask, from a higher view, is this really that big? In a year, will this still have this weight? Over an entire lifetime, is this worth my peace? And as you ask, ego shrinks. Ego is an expert at turning everything into about me. It turns inconvenience into insult, critique into attack, delay into disrespect. The view from above breaks that. It reminds you that you are one human being inside a vast world full of variables, full of other stories. It returns humility. And humility here isn't shrinking yourself, it's refusing to put yourself at the center of every drama. This meditation also revives compassion. Sometimes autopilot is aggressive because you see the other as an enemy, not as a human. When your view rises, you realize that person is also in a struggle. They have pain, fear, ignorance. That doesn't excuse harm, but it prevents you from starting an unnecessary inner war. You can set boundaries without hatred. You can be firm without being contaminated. That changes everything. The fifth meditation is one that shocks the mind into sobriety and also brings deep calm. The what if the worst happened meditation. Many people confuse this with pessimism. In Stoicism, it's preparation. It removes terror from the future. Autopilot often comes from fear of losing control. Fear becomes reactivity. Fear becomes aggression. Fear becomes hurry. Fear becomes desperate guarantees. When you do this meditation, you're not inviting bad things. You're removing fear's power. You're telling yourself, if it happens, I can handle it. You're reminding your brain that you are not as fragile as it claims, because the brain likes to convince you you won't survive. That conviction creates panic. Panic creates autopilot. The what-if meditation returns ground. You think, what if I lose this opportunity? What if I'm rejected? What if this goes wrong? Then you complete it with sobriety. Then I adjust. I learn. I restart. I find another path. Most people suffer because they imagine the worst and simultaneously imagine they could not survive the worst. Stoicism teaches you to imagine the worst and remember your strength. That makes you less reactive. Because when fear stops driving, dignity drives again. This meditation also helps you stop reacting out of desperation. Desperation is the engine of reactions you later regret. When you remove desperation, you begin choosing more calmly. You don't need to control everything to be safe. You need to be prepared for what you cannot control. That preparation is inner. It's training of mind and spirit. It's saying, the world can change, but I can remain intact. The sixth meditation is the meditation of benevolent SWAT. We could also call the meditation of a higher intention. It looks soft, but it's armor against one of the most common autopilots. The autopilot of becoming hardened. Because when you keep reacting, you harden, and hardening feels like protection, but it becomes prison. It steals joy, presence, humanity. Stoic benevolence is not being naive. It's being strong enough not to become bitter. This meditation works like this. Before you step into the day or before you step into a difficult conversation, you remember the kind of person you want to be? You choose an intention. Today I will act with justice. Today I will act with patience. Today I will act with temperance. Today I will act with courage. You choose one virtue as your axis, and when the trigger arrives, that virtue pulls you back like a compass. Without a compass, any wind moves you. With a compass, you can feel the wind and still stay on course. Benevolence also shows up as a question. What is the noblest response I can give right now? Notice, not the response that feels good in the moment, not the response that humiliates, not the response that wins, the noble response. That question changes your posture because it connects you to something larger than and character is the only thing you still have, even when the day goes wrong. As you train this meditation, you start feeling something many people have lost. Self-respect. You end the day respecting yourself more, and that is taking back control. Because control is not controlling people. It's not controlling circumstances. Control is not abandoning yourself. Control is not betraying yourself. Control is not becoming someone you don't want to be, just because someone provoked you. The seventh meditation ties everything together and turns autopilot into awareness. Memento mori, the meditation of time and finitude. I know it can sound heavy, but in Stoicism it becomes lightness, because remembering life is short helps you stop wasting life on small reactions. A huge part of autopilot is wasting time and soul. You react, then spend hours ruminating. You react, then lose sleep. You'll react, then you have to repair damage. You react, then you create distance in relationships that matter. For what? Pride, impulse, fear, needing to be right, needing control. When you remember time, those needs shrink. You start asking, is this worth my life? Is this worth losing my peace? Is this worth becoming worse? And often the answer is no. Memento mori isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to return you to the essential. And the essential's always the same. What depends on you is your character. You don't know how many days you have. You don't know how many mornings you'll open your eyes. So why give your hours to annoyances that build nothing? Why turn every inconvenience into a battle? Why live as if you had infinite time to regret later? Stoicism is the opposite, living in a way that reduces regret, choosing now with presence, dignity, sobriety. And when you truly practice this meditation, something beautiful happens. Autopilot weakens when your life gains meaning, because autopilot is often emptiness trying to fill itself with drama, a heart starving for purpose, trying to feel alive through conflict. But when you remember time, you choose purpose. You choose present. You choose to love better. Speak more carefully. Stop spreading poison. Stop being one more source of noise. that changes your presence. That changes your life. Now, I want to show you how these 7 meditations fit together in a real situation, because you might be thinking, okay, this sounds good, but will I remember in the moment? You'll remember if you train. And training isn't waiting for crisis. Training is repeating in small moments, so it's available in big ones. Imagine you receive a message that bothers you. Autopilot wants to answer instantly. Meditation 1 enters. Pause and breath. You exhale. You feel your body. You don't answer yet. Meditation 2 enters. Does this depend on me? Do I control what they said? No. Do I control what I reply? Yes. Meditation 3 enters. Is this fact or impression? They wrote something. My mind is interpreting it as an attack. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I won't assent immediately. Meditation 4 enters. The view from above. Will this matter in a year? Is this worth my peace? Meditation 5 enters. What if I don't? Reply now. And they think something. What if they get upset? I can handle that. I don't need to control the narrative. Meditation 6 enters. What is the noblest response? Maybe silence. Maybe a short and firm reply. Maybe a conversation later. Meditation 7 enters. Time is precious. I won't sell my night for a war of messages. I choose dignity. That is taking back control. That is leaving autopilot. Now imagine a family argument. Autopilot is even stronger there, because family touches old wounds. You hear a tone, a comment, and suddenly, you become the version of yourself from 20 years ago. The body remembers. What you need is not to be kidnapped by emotional memory. Pause returns you. Control dichotomy organizes you. Assent prevents you from turning everything into an attack. The view from above reminds you you don't want to ruin life over pride. The what if removes the desperation of, I must win now. Benevolence reminds you to choose justice and temperance. Time reminds you, you want to build, not destroy. Here is the secret most people miss. The autopilot is not a monster, it's a habit. And habits can be retrained. You don't need to hate yourself for reacting. You need to learn to return. And this is the key. The goal is not never leaving your center. The goal is returning faster. A dull life is that. You will get irritated. You will get scared. You will get anxious. You will fall into old patterns. And then you return. Returning is victory. Returning is self-control. Returning is maturity. Let me speak to you in a more intimate way now. Like I'm sitting beside you on a difficult morning. Maybe you're tired of yourself, tired of promising change and repeating patterns, tired of apologizing, tired of feeling like you're always repairing damage. And maybe there's sadness underneath the reactivity, because a lot of reactivity is sadness wearing a mask. Sadness of not feeling heard, not feeling respected, feeling alone, carrying too much. Reactivity becomes a way to say, I exist, but it's expensive. It isolates you. It hardens you. It fills you with guilt. It leaves you feeling like life is always at war. Stoicism offers another way to exist. With presence. With dignity. Without shouting on the inside. It begins with one simple commitment. I will not obey my first impulse. I will give myself 1 second. 1 second is a lot. 1 second is where life changes. Autopilot wants to steal that second. It wants you to believe you have to react. You don't. You can choose. And here is something that will change your posture. When you don't react on autopilot, you don't lose power, you gain it. You gain self-respect. You gain clarity. You gain peace. You gain influence. Because a person who doesn't react impulsively becomes someone the environment can feel, not through fear, but through stability. And stability is rare. Stability calms. Stability organizes. Stability inspires. You don't need to announce it, you just live it. Because the way you respond is your presence in the world. Imagine what your life would look like if you practiced these 7 meditations for a few weeks, not as theory, but as habit. You practice in small things. The line, traffic, the comment, the noise, the message, the unexpected. Little by little you notice. Your mind doesn't fire as fast. Your chest doesn't tighten as much. Your tongue doesn't run ahead of you. You sleep better. You regret less. You respect yourself more. And when you respect yourself more, you get bothered less, because a lot of irritation comes from inside, from the feeling that you're losing your own worth. When you restore inner worth, you stop fighting for it in every conversation. You also begin choosing your battles better. Autopilot loves conflict, because conflict gives the illusion of control. But the Stoic learns that not every fight is justice. Sometimes it's ego, and ego is a bottomless pit. It's never satisfied. It always wants more validation, more being right, more winning. That keeps you trapped. When you stop feeding ego, you become free. You begin feeling a peace that doesn't depend on the world being perfect, because it won't be. It depends on you being present. Some people hear this and think, but I'm afraid that if I don't react, I'll be swallowed. That fear is common. Maybe you learned that if you don't assert yourself, you'll be disrespected. If you don't attack, you will by attacked. If you don't control, you'll lose. But notice, Stoicism doesn't teach passivity. It teaches strategy. It teaches acting in the right place, not wasting force in drama, placing force in virtue. The difference is enormous. You can set boundaries. You can say no. You can step away. You can confront injustice. But you do it without losing dignity, without losing center, without becoming what you hate. That is real power. Real power isn't shouting, it's choosing. Let me give you a sentence to keep like an inner seal. When you feel autopilot rising, I don't need to react to protect myself. I need to choose to respect myself. That sentence is strong because it replaces the logic of defense with the logic of dignity. It takes you out of fear and places you in character. Now, I want to tie the 7 meditations into a simple inner script you can use anywhere. When the trigger hits, you pause and breathe. You ask, does this depend on me? You remember, is this impression or fact? You lift a view. Is this truly big, or is my ego inflating it? You remove the terror. If it goes badly, I can handle it, I adjust. You choose virtue. What is the noble response? And you remember, I will not sell my life for this. That's it. Simple. And for a life lived on autopilot, this is a revolution. And if you want something even more concrete, here's a pocket-sized practice. When you notice you're in autopilot, don't try to fix everything. Do only one thing, reduce your next action. Instead of solve my whole life, choose the next right step. Autopilot wants all or nothing. Awareness wants the next step. The next right step might be silence, water, walking away, waiting 10 minutes before replying, saying, I need to think instead of reacting, admitting I got carried away, apologizing, setting a boundary. The next right step returns control because it returns direction. Direction is the opposite of autopilot. One more thing people overlook. Reacting on autopilot is also about what you feed yourself. What do you feed your mind constantly? News arguments, comparisons, outrage, content that keeps you tense? Autopilot doesn't come from nowhere. It's cultivated. Constant stimulation keeps your nervous system on alert, and an alert system reacts more. That's why taking back control is also mental hygiene, choosing more carefully what you let inside. You wouldn't let anyone walk into your house and wreck it. Why let anything walk into your mind and wreck your day? That's Stoicism applied. Protecting your inner space is something sacred in the sense of precious, in the sense of life. And I'll say this directly, with care. If you want to stop reacting on autopilot, you will need to accept that not everything deserves a response. Not everything deserves an explanation. Not everything deserves your energy. Not everything deserves your soul. Autopilot makes you think everything is about you. Everything is urgent. Everything is threat. Awareness reminds you it isn't. You choose. You select, you preserve, you respect yourself. When you start doing this, a quiet transformation happens. You become more trustworthy to yourself. You begin believing in yourself. Because one of the deepest pains of living on autopilot is feeling you cannot trust your own behavior. I say I'll change, but I repeat. I say I'll become, but I explode. That hurts. It erodes self-esteem. It creates shame. Stoicism, by returning control to you, returns inner trust. You start seeing yourself act with more dignity. You start seeing yourself choose. And that creates a kind of peace that doesn't come from outside. It comes from inside, from self-respect. I want to end this with a decision, not pressure. Stoicism isn't cruel to man. It's a firm invitation to stop abandoning yourself, to stop being dragged, to come home inside yourself. And I know this doesn't happen overnight, but it happens. Return by return, 1 second at a time, 1 breath at a time, 1 choice at a time. So starting today, when you feel autopilot rising, remember one simple sentence, most childlike, but powerful. I can wait 1 second. 1 second changes everything. 1 second is where character enters. 1 second is where your life stops being reflex and becomes choice. And when you get that second, let the 7 meditations move through you like a calm current. Pause, control, ascent, view from above, preparation, virtue, time, and then respond. Don't react, respond. If you want to seal this as a commitment, comment below, I choose to respond. Not for me, for you. Like leaving a reminder on the door of your mind. And if this helped, share it with someone who feels trapped in autopilot, reacting, regretting, believing there's no way out. There is. And the way out isn't changing the world. It's reclaiming inner government. And when you reclaim inner government, you don't become someone who doesn't feel. You become someone who feels and choose. And in the end, that is freedom.